Hello. Testing the microphone and telling those who are with us virtually that we're running a little late, but the event is still on, so please be patient.
Jerusalema ikayalami ilondoloze uhambe nami zungangishilana Jerusalema ikayalami ilondoloze uhambe nami zungangishilana
Amatengazaje kusesa bakomo pamaibaje ugaja mama early morning amatengazaje kusesa bakomo pamaibaje magoro ali amu yamikira akutiri nerero mwana wanzeru magoro ali amuya mipira akutiri nderero mwana wanzeru line po uyu linderero mwana wanzeru tinde mwana wanzeru agire gogo wana madingo zamu ya mikira kudina madingo mwana wanzeru agire gogo wana madingo zamu ya mikira kudina madingo mwana wanzeru simu kuna mago kawizina malota ine bambo wanga tandisi na salandeka kawizina mwe ni malota ine bambo wanga tamwali na salandeka gondo mama gondo une mama mwe gondo mama jamanda tafera moina we gondo mama gondo une mama mwe gondo mama chalamanda utafera moina we nangomba mbilio tumaona Akidesi aimbaye, aimbaye, zokoma tumaona lero.
ndipo talamanda aimbaye aimbaye zokoma tumaona lero.
Ndamba kuti mwakwatira mwabala mwana woyera, dzina lake Musolo.
Unamva kwa ndani kuti ndakwatira.
Ndamba kuti mwakwatira mwabala mwana woyera, dzina lake Musolo.
Nangopanga chikoso kwatenza kuita mali.
Musolo,
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 Musolo mai. Musolo, Musolo, Musolo mai.
mwana mene ndamai wake ndikufuna ndipite nawo ku UK. Mwana mene ndamai wake ndikufuna ndipite nawo ku UK. Maphunziro onse akaphunzire ku UK. Maphunziro onse aphunzire ku UK.
Namba koko namba kumatimbeko chemeri chemeri kunali chemeri
Gemeli, Gemeli, Gemeli,
kunali chemeri
Gemeli mama mwe,
iya meri mwe iya dale kunali chemeri
iyo,
iya meri mwe iya dale
Gemeli,
Imbeko koko mapacha iyo iya meri mwe iya dale kunali chemeri
akafuna kunena
Akidesi, 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 akidesi inabwana tagera nikuno.
mugabo wanjye mugabo nkunda ngarukira sinagusenze disi nagusanze nisanga kuva mu bwangavu no mu bukumi bwanjye noneho mbere y'ingeri y'urugo rwawe ndanagara nkagandurwa n'abagenzi nk'insamukura nk'ikirizwa n'abahetse nkahindukira mfate mu mugongo nkagandurwa n'ubwigunge naragiwe n'ubwigenge bwawe tujyane sindagira usange dusabane nka kera utarasuhuka nkiri rudasumbwa ukinsimbagiza abasizi bakansingiza nanjye ubwanjye naragukunze reka kwiheza mu rwawe ngushikurwe n'amahanga reka kurarikira iby'isi bituma udashyigikira urwo washinze garura umutima mu rwawe mugenzi dore inka zirakamwa ibigega birabunitse imico yabuze kibenyura inkangaza rukabugira inzara ihari n'intimba y'umutima ugukunda tujyane sindagira usange dusaba iyeye nka kera utarasuhuka nkiri rudasumbwa ukinsimbagiza abasizi bakansingiza erega njye iwacu ndahazi sinahangishijwe na ruzagayura sinahunza amahoro y'akarande inkangu y'ukuboza siyo yantebuye sindikine
Ladies and gentlemen, mesdames et messieurs, thank you very much for being here. Thank you for your patience. And for those of you who are with us virtually, thank you for staying with us. I must say that I've really enjoyed Travel Broadens the Mind. I've really enjoyed this succession of beautiful Rwandan ballads that have been our music in the background. I hope to go back with some. My name is John Sibi Okumu. I am a broadcast journalist from Ghana. It's a quiz to find out where I'm from. And it's my pleasant duty to conduct a press conference. This is not the first ever press conference, and I'm sure there'll be more. And the press conference is to address the fact that AGRA is about to launch a 5-year strategy plan towards the alleviation of hunger. I think that can be understood by every single person in this room. You are my colleagues in the Fourth Estate, and we rely on you to spread our message, I hope, positively throughout the world. So a request to you is to honor everybody on our panel. I know that in this sort of setting that it's targeted and everybody is very, very, very likely to address every single question to one person. I'd like you to think laterally and to involve everybody on my panel. And let me tell you who they are. We have here, you've seen him in numerous other fora during this conference, is His Excellency Haile Mariam Desalegn, former Prime Minister of Ethiopia and Chairman of AGRA. Next to him, we have Dr. Agnes Kalibata, who is the president thereof, and all the way from Burkina Faso. I've already asked him to invite me to the FESPACO annual film conference with my film. So I have a little bit dig here. We're going to do several things. They're going to have some introductory remarks, one by one, to the floor to ask the questions. There's always a request for you to be pointed and courteous. Pointed and courteous. Again, those are fairly simple English words. So without further ado, and my role, having taken however long, is to ask Your Excellency to begin.
Thank you very much, our moderator, members of the press, Your Excellency, Dr. Dewande Innocent Kiba, Minister of Agriculture of the Republic of Burkina Faso, President Dr. Kalibata, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen. As we have heard at this year's AGRF Summit, AGRA's agri-food sector has recently faced numerous shocks, leading us to rethink how we produce, distribute, and consume our food. The business as usual model cannot work anymore. We must be strategic and deliberate in our approach for us to meet the Sustainable Development Goal by 2030. That is within the coming or next 8 years. In my travel around the continent, including Burkina Faso, where the minister is a living witness, I have encountered firsthand the hope and challenge farmers and entrepreneurs have been facing. I have also heard here at this AGRF Summit that there is a political willingness to move towards building food systems. And many, especially young people, are advocating passionately for change in diets and change in how we produce and consume food sustainably. I'm sure we will hear the first hand this afternoon. I want to be very clear that the only solution for Africa is to transform its food systems, to put the continent onto a sustainable development pathway. Our experience on the continent as AGRA and the UN Food Systems Summit showed us how this must be done. We have also been deeply informed by the need to learn, to pick the best approaches to what the emerging evidence tells us. That is including from our own farmers. And it is this thinking that has informed the development of AGRA's new strategy. What does this new strategy mean for AGRA? We are concentrating on two areas of work from our last strategy. First, seeds, which are so crucial for farmers. We want to help the countries we work with to develop functioning seed systems. We want farmers to be able to gain and retain the access to right seed at the right price and the right time. Secondly, we have learned over the years that for maximum impact, we have to rally behind governments which have the best opportunity to lead the food system transformation. In any country, if the government is not a driving seat, we believe that success will be lagging. We will continue to do this to put in place the best policies that support farmers and smallholder enterprises and attract investment. What areas of work are we developing further? We have been learning our lesson and responding to the needs that are so clearly out there. We are expanding our work in sustainable farming. As you all know, the climate change calamities are coming time and again in a very short period of time, from one season to the other, as you also, journalists, people of press, witnessed. This will help farmers and communities to build the sustainability of their business and lives through the land, water, and farming that they need. We have also learned from our last strategy that markets and trade are critical components of the transformation. We are now sharpening our focus, knowing farmers and SMEs depend heavily on markets to sell their produce. Finally, our new strategy will focus on three critical areas of change, with climate change at the center. We are becoming more deliberate on our gender, youth, and inclusion work. And we are keen on transforming African diets to make sure that everyone has access to affordable and nutritionally diverse diets. All this work, of course, comes with a cost, and we are seeking $550 million to fund this strategy. On this note, we would particularly like to thank our partners, our resource partners, and above all, our African partner governments and our smallholder farmers. And we would like to expand and extend our thanks to you all today for being here at this press briefing. Let me invite you to join us as we launch the new strategy later today. Please join us in sustainably growing our food systems, which is our motto. Thank you.
A round of applause, if you would. Thank you. I retain from that very short allocution the fact that there have been lessons learned, the fact that the need for change is absolutely paramount. Things have to change. The fact that the young have to be included in this particular conversation, and the fact that it's going to take goodwill from many segments of the community. And I noted also the idea that farmers, the people who are growing the food need our help. Dr. Agnes Kalibata, your turn.
Thank you. Maybe the best way to come at this one. Thank you, Chair, for those introductory remarks, and Honorable Minister. Really, thank you for being here with us this week. I'm thinking that maybe the best way to come at this is to make it, put it in everyday life. What the work AGRA does, how I see the work AGRA does, how it plays in everyday life. When I was growing up, and many of you maybe have grown up in rural areas, you know that we planted beans, we grew maize, we grew all those things. And you know how much we harvested. When I went to university, I met improved seeds. I saw that actually in the same area we were growing half a ton. You know katumani, a variety that is very short, that when it does very well, gives you half a ton. When it does very well, gives you half a ton per hectare. Then I realized that there are all sorts of varieties out there that in the same area for the same energy could give you 5 metric tons. So that was like night and day, because all you need probably is half a ton to eat, to feed your family. That means you have 4.5 metric tons to sell. So that is an extremely important part of what AGRA does. Recognizing that we can change farmers' lives just by helping them have access to the seeds that can change their lives. Of course, it's not just seeds. It needs good agronomy. It needs good use of fertilizers. And it needs water. Until now, we are all using rain-fed agriculture. So when Kofi Annan and other partners launched AGRA, the AGRA's conversation started when he was still in the UN. And the issue was, why is Africa so behind? How do we change things? So, and everybody said it must be the Africans don't have access to technologies. It must be the reason. And we know that. So when he said, but there are so many mistakes that have been made around technologies. Is it possible that we think about it as a uniquely African green revolution that is not looking to make the same mistakes that other people have made, but really focuses on the opportunities that Africa offers? Start with the commodities that Africa grows. Last night, you saw His Excellency launching the Bean Challenge with the Rwandan bean, sending the Rwandan bean to the rest of the world, challenging the rest of the world to eat and grow beans. But that bean is iron fortified. That bean yields 4.5 metric tons per hectare, right? So that bean has real value for a farmer that grows it. So it's technologies like that that can change farmers' lives and move them into mainstream economies. That's what we do. That's what we try to do, to create systems that allow those technologies to reach farmers by investing in SMEs, as you've seen us do here in Rwanda, and by investing in national research systems that can actually support the ecosystem so that farmers can access them. So that is what we did in our first strategy. But you can't do that unless you have scientists. Part of what we did is train scientists. When I was in the Ministry of Agriculture, we actually didn't have breeders in Iraq. Those breeders, the breeders we have today, were trained by the support of AGRA, which we are extremely grateful for. So it's that work now that we are preparing for. Forward, you heard my chair talk about the things we are going to do. To avoid being overwhelmed, it's a big sector. We try to continue finding areas we can do well. But also we try to find ways we can bring things together. So for me, if there's any one thing that is really significantly different, it's also how we think about partnerships. Recognizing that as AGRA, we can only do so much. But if we build strong partnerships with other people that are trying to deliver, we can go very far. That's why we don't do breeding now anymore. We depend on the CGIR to do the breeding. And we focus on what is happening at country level. These partnerships is why we are here today, so that we can show and showcase what countries, now, even as we talk, I think the CEO forum was just happening. the D room is also going on so that we can give countries an opportunity to meet CEOs, to go to the D room, to talk about opportunities in their own countries and be able to provide visibility of what can happen at country level. So part of all that is embedded into our strategy. And what we are trying to do is to make sure that partnerships becomes our DNA as we go forward. We will end with food. We started with agriculture. We will end with food, recognizing that we really need to focus, like the chair has said, on food systems, not just agriculture, because we can't do an agriculture that deteriorates the environment. We can't do an agriculture that does not appreciate that the right food is as important as food. It can't just be food. So that's why food system is important. But also, we can't do an agriculture that doesn't support SMEs, that doesn't support trade and move our economy forward. So I will end it there for now. But I hope you now do have a sense of what our focus was about. The focus and the initiation, the reason to be was so that African farmers can have a system that delivers good quality seeds to them, that delivers good quality fertilizers to them, that has a mechanism of delivering extension. And today we think about how all those things can be integrated. You know, we focused on doing all those things individually and doing research and making sure that they happen. Today, we are so much focused again on how we bring it together through our own integration, but also integration of our own business lines, but also through integrating with others through the partnerships I've talked about. So thank you for being here. We'll be looking to answer your questions.
Ladies and gentlemen, could we please acknowledge that contribution to our conversation? Thank you very much indeed. Again, the idea of respecting the environment, the idea of sustainability is key. So as somebody listening to these interventions, the idea of looking forward to the future rather than being despondent about the present, we have to do something. And this idea of integration, of bringing things together. Time for piecemeal interventions. Now it must be, what is the word, holistic. Maintenant, mesdames et messieurs, ça permet quand même de sortir quelques mots de français. Il va parler en anglais surtout. Mais le monsieur du Burkina, mon frère burkinabé, ça me fait beaucoup plaisir de vous présenter le docteur Delwende Innocent Kiba, ministre de l'Agriculture, des Ressources animales et halieutiques, Burkina Faso. That's enough French from me. Over to you in English. The Minister for Agriculture, sir.
Merci beaucoup, cher modérateur. Thanks. Thanks to all of you. Dear ladies and gentlemen, yes, just to introduce and then to say that we are really glad to be at this forum and particularly at this press conference. And from my side, I really want to highlight some points and then to share our experience with AGRA and then to confirm that AGRA has given a lot of support to transform agriculture in Africa and also to transform the food systems in Africa. And the context we have now, the context of food insecurity we are living now, tell us that we really need to reinforce the action of AGRA in the continents, and also to get out from these difficult situations. Let me say that our experience with AGRA started 15 years ago, so in 2008. And I would also like to say that we appreciate the approach of AGRA in terms of flexibility, because all the actions, all the projects we had with AGRA were in line with our priorities. I'm talking about the priorities of my country, and this is really important to mention. Also to say that we really appreciate the starting point of the collaboration with AGRA, which started by research, by developing technologies, innovations, and that was mentioned by Dr. Kalibata. In terms of research, AGRA helped a lot to develop the seed sector, because we all know that in terms of productivity, seed is a very important component, in addition to the fertilizer, of course. So AGRA helped to build capacity within the research and to develop new varieties that are really adapted to our context, that are really adapted to our biophysical conditions. In addition to that, we also have the opportunities to develop some technologies on soil fertility management. And one of these technologies is the micro dosing technologies, which is really relevant regarding to the context we have now, namely the fertilizer crisis. And this year, I can confirm that we really use it a lot, these technologies, and we work with our extension services so that they really apply these technologies at large scale, because we were facing the fertilizer crisis. Accessibility was very low, so we decided to apply this technology at large scales, and this was really helpful a lot. Let me also say that with AGRA, we also developed our private sector. So AGRA contributed to build capacity in the private sector, and this is important because we cannot today develop our agriculture, our food systems only by the action of the governments. We really need these private sectors. And with AGRA today, we have companies, seed companies, fertilizer companies that were built by AGRA. And some of them are attending these forums. And this is really, really something useful, not only for Burkina Faso, but for, I would say, many regions in Africa, because Burkina Faso is now a leader in terms of seed productions, and we are also sending some seed to other regions of the continent, and this is important. Another action with AGRA from 2015 to 2021 was about support of our government's institutional support and development of food policies. This is something which is sometimes missing, and we really appreciate that, because you can have all the technologies, you can have all the finances, but if you don't have a good policies, good institutions, good governance, then you may fail. And with AGRA, we developed some laws that are really being applied now in terms of strategies, in terms of policies. We developed some software to better manage our institutions, to better manage, for instance, our programs, our budgets. And this is something which is being applied in the government, and particularly in the Department of Agriculture. And then we are now with AGRA really working on the cropping systems, and particularly on how to really transform these cropping systems using all the technologies that were developed with the researchers, and also applying all the strategies that are developed from the support to the institutions, and then to the governments. And we are now, for instance, going to develop at large scale the rice productions, the rice seed systems, and also the rice productions, and to improve the productivity of the rice, because it's really a strategic crop in terms of food security. We are also really developing some inclusive finances, some innovative finances to really facilitate access to the finances by the smallholders. This is really important, and also to develop the value chains, access to markets, and so on. So I'm glad today to really hear that new strategies of AGRA is going to be implemented. And we have a lot of expectation from that. We have also priorities, and some of these priorities is to really build resilience of our populations in terms of food security, because my country is really now facing a difficult situations, not only food insecurity, but also a civil crisis. So we have about 2 million people displaced. So we have a reduction of crop surfaces. So we have difficulties, and we have a lot of expectations. And what we expect from AGRA is really to go for intensification of our agriculture and transformation of our food systems, and focusing on flagship programs. We really expect to develop the composting unit that's really started with AGRA, but we really want to go at large scales to develop this composting unit, and then to better be more resilient regarding this fertilizer crisis, and also to help to better manage the soils, and then to produce in the more sustainable ways. So composting is something really important to implement, and that will really help the smallholders. We have some strategic sector we want to develop. This is the poultry farming, the chicken raising, because in the past, our country was really a huge producer of chickens, but this sector was impacted by the avian flu, and we really need to support the smallholders in these systems to develop this sector. We have a potential in the milk sector, but we still import 90% of our milk. And we think that there is a potential to develop in this sector. Our idea is really to integrate livestock and crop productions. And to do that, we think that we should also develop the production of forage, to introduce the forage production in the cropping systems to allow the farmers to easily feed the animals. And maybe first we will need to develop the seed sector, the forage seed sector, before we go to the development of the forage production at a large scale. In addition, we want to also focus on neglected crops, because we think that if you want to be more resilient in terms of food security, we also have to diversify, and we have the potentials to diversify and really to be more resilient regarding climate change. This is important. We have some crops that we can develop, root and tuber crops particularly. And recently, I had discussions with our researcher, and we have also potential to develop wheat production. In the past, we used to produce wheat. The potential is there. We have varieties, because recently we faced the bread crisis in Burkina Faso, and we think that we will develop the wheat production starting this year, and then to also diversify our food products. And then we expect support from AGRA and also all the partners. And finally, we want to really focus on developing irrigations to really minimize the risk of the climate. So that are our expectation from AGRA and all the partners. And really thank you, and we expect to really benefit from these new strategies AGRA is going to implement. Thanks.
We please recognize the intervention of the minister from Burkina Faso. It's over to you, good people. Again, I have a background in teaching sorry, sir. No, I was just appealing to you once again. I will take some points from what I've heard from the minister so that it doesn't seem as if I'm treating him differently. What I took from the minister, time being what it is that we need the idea of public-private sector partnerships, the idea of good governance, and the idea of diversifying and introducing new ways of the tradition has to be reviewed. So could I ask you at this point to give you some idea of time, because my job is very recognizable. I think that we now have something in the order of 15 minutes. And then do forgive me if I have to stop things in 15 minutes, because we have to move on to the next session. So the plea that I gave at the outset was, would you, by rights, ask a question which theoretically could be answered by anybody on the panel? And then first to answer will answer it. If the others have to add, very quickly, and then we move on. So just as a ploy, can I see by a show of hands how many questions we're expecting? 3, now 4. Now, again, this is also a classroom gambit. As people go on, it's going to increase, but I've noted 4. So the gentleman here.
Thank you very much. Permit me to speak with a mask on. I have a cold. These are effects of climate change.
You've got a funny man. I love that. Okay. A question, please.
Yes. What is the actual support to smallholder farmers in this new strategy? If the question is not gone to everybody, I can add it up with the
One question, please.
Yes.
What is the support to farmers? Can we stay with that?
Not really.
Okay. Sorry, I don't wish to be, you have to help me to
Are
help
there
you.
priority countries that are going to benefit
Yes.
from
Are
this
there,
strategy?
are there priority countries that are going to benefit? I'm thinking on the ground as well. My panel is listening too. Could I listen to the questions that are coming from the other three people who've got them from the outset, if we would? And panel, I'm asking you to think laterally as well. Here we have the question two. Yes, right next. Yes, do. Your name and the institution for which you work.
Okay, thank you. I'm called Musings Branche and I write for the Africa Report magazine and Jan Afrique. As you start working on this new strategy, we have the current food crisis across the continent. What's the current situation and how are you helping governments deal with this crisis as you also help them when implementing the new strategy? Thank you.
Thank you. You go back and give your name, sir. I was very rude.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. My name is Edwin Musoni. I'm a journalist with the New Times here in Rwanda.
Thank you very much. I'm moving on. Question number 3.
Thank you. I'm Divin Oayo. I work with the Rwanda Broadcasting Agency. My question is, it has been mentioned that in the morning by the chief economist of FAO that almost 80% of Africans don't have can't afford the healthy diet. It's 2 questions. There is one of the health diet, but also there is another of food itself. But how does this strategy answer that particular question? Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. There was a 4th gentleman here. Your name and institution, please.
Thank you very much. My name is Edmund Kajiri. I work for Kigali Today. My question goes to the chair. You mentioned what worked in the first strategy, but you never told us what didn't work, which is what actually prompted you to change the strategy. And lastly, where do you hope to get the 550 million that you need to implement the new strategy? Thank you.
Right, thank you very much indeed. So there is time enough for you to think about other questions. Democracy is all, but that was that tough question came to you, sir. So tough answer.
Thank you very much. Let me start from specifically the question which has been addressed to me, and then say something about the rest. First of all, what didn't work is answered in our strategy. The first one is about sustainable farming. I mean, we used to have a traditional farming ways, including our concept of green revolution in the early days. You know, we have tried to address uniquely African green revolution for the last couple of decades, but now we need to go for a sustainable farming because the climate shocks are becoming more pronounced, and we need to address that. So we were not up to the shocks that were prevailing in our previous strategy periods. The second one is to, you know, nobody has expected the pandemic of that magnitude can happen. And that has exposed our vulnerabilities. And we need to be very vigilant in this kind of things. And therefore, those shocks has to be addressed properly. So in this regard, you know, we are moving into addressing the moisture stress issues through regenerative agriculture, which is a shortcoming we have. We have some examples and best practices, like for example in Kenya, we have tried that, but it's not scaled to other countries as well. But with that best practice, we can go further into our work. I think these are the two major departures in our next strategy. Again, the youth issue, the youth in agriculture is not as we expected to happen in our previous strategy periods. Now, our program for inclusion has to be deepened, where we have to make agriculture very attractive to the young people and to modernize it and to digitize it. And last year we tried to study, and if you remember in our last AGRF, we brought about a digital agriculture as one of the areas where our young people can involve into precision agriculture. So all these things are something which we have seen in it. But above all, the institutional capacity and the government's capacity still remains to be nascent. So we need to strengthen that capacity as well. So we already started to have CALA, if you remember, the Center for Agricultural Leaders Training or Development. And that center was established, looking into our shortcomings earlier on government's capacity. To the amount of resources, I think we have traditional donors, which already giving us. This is only a catalytic one, by the way. That doesn't mean that agriculture or food systems transformation in Africa needs only that amount of money. We are catalysts. In our partnership, we have government, private sector, especially small and medium enterprises, and farmers, mainly smallholder farmers. Of course, medium and large scale farmers are also necessary for Africa. So it is, we as a catalysts, we will garner all the support of those stakeholders. So we call it Partnership for Inclusive Agricultural Transformation with PIATA. That partnership, we are at the center of that partnership, catalyzing all stakeholders involved within it. But for us, we need for catalytic funding this amount of money, 550 million. And we are very sure that we will get that amount of money from our partners that support us. As far as the affordability is concerned, the first thing is to make our farmers commercialized and get the income, the necessary income. So we go for commercial agriculture production, where it includes the whole food system. It's not only production, but markets and all those things. So the affordability issue, which was mentioned in today's presentation by the chief economist of the FAO, is critical, and we have to address it. So I think our strategy, coupled with our partners, can make this happen. Priority countries for us are still, we cannot go everywhere, but we have increased the number of countries we engage in. Now I think to 16 countries. We used to be 11 in our last strategy, but now 16 countries. Those 5 countries we selected are the ones which are showing progress in agricultural and food systems transformation. So we are expanding our reach. Again, let me leave the others to the president and the minister. Thank you.
Thank you very much. If I may just set the president up by saying the minister has been so kind as to say that these are strategy-based questions and he's going to say nothing. And therefore, the president will have the final word. But I'm just wondering, before she does so, if there is another question, one more question, because it is going to be the final answer. if you would.
Nta n'icyo mufite mu Kinyarwanda? Nta kibazo mufite mu Kinyarwanda? Hmm? Hmm? Okay. Reka mbanze nsubize ibibazo byanyu. Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. I will start with the question that was asked by Edwin. I think the chair has touched on some of what you asked around what would farmers benefit. This whole work we do is really with the farmer in mind. But we don't look at direct injection at the farm level. We look at creating an ecosystem that provides choices to farmers so that farmers can be able to sustainably access the things they need, right? If I came to your village and I gave your kid a soda, tomorrow when you want to buy a soda, where do you go? You like it, but where do you go? So me giving you a soda was as good as that was nice, but no thank you. But if I put a shop in a village where when you want a soda, you can buy that soda affordably, then you know that there's an ecosystem that is being created. As you have seen here, in when the system of getting seeds done is an extremely elaborate system. It involves private sector, it involves government institutions, it involves all that. It is fragile enough to break at any point in time if not enough attention is being paid. So we focus on those systems so that farmers can get the right crops. You talked about how would it help improve nutrition and all the things we're talking about. Part of what we'll be doing, as the chair said earlier, is to focus on some of the challenges we have. Can this be nutrient rich so that when they access seeds, they actually are seeds that are nutrient rich? Can they be drought tolerant so that when they access seeds, they can actually have a harvest even when there's a dry season? So that delivery mechanism can help deliver all those things. So we really focus on building systems that can deliver opportunities and choices to farmers. Knowing fully well that there's an SM environment, that when these systems are created, there's an SM environment, there's a business environment that you are allowing the private sector to take advantage of. Knowing fully well that there's a public sector that can piggyback on this, and if there's a market failure somewhere, that still they can help deliver to farmers. But the biggest benefit is the market that it brings to farmers when everything works very well, so that they can sell their surplus in the market. There was another question around the current crisis, and they were interrelated. What are we doing to address the current crisis? So I think the biggest opportunity here I see, I was actually, one of the reasons I was late, I was upstairs with COMESA and others launching the regional food balance sheet. It's a very important instrument that helps us understand how food can move around in this region. How do you know where food is? How do you know where food is lacking? And how do we build a system that allows this food to move around, minimizing trade barriers, minimizing challenges of movement and all that? So we've been doing this since the crisis started, just helping people understand that there are things we can't afford. Locking borders is not an option, however difficult things are getting. Let's not lock our borders. We depend on each other when things are good. We need to depend on each other when things are tough. So that is one of the things we focused on, to just make sure that we all have a sense of where things are working and where things are not working, and where is food and where is food lacking, so that things can move. But also where things becoming significantly serious from a hunger perspective, we've been providing that information. We've been also trying to help people understand that we can't focus on the crisis from a perspective of we need food now. We need to focus on the crisis. Yes, we need to feed people right now, and there are institutions that are doing that. especially following on all these numbers somewhere in the around the Horn of Africa. You've seen that somewhere around the Sahel. You see those numbers that are where people are struggling, mostly because of climate change, mostly because of COVID, and then of course the Ukraine crisis that makes it difficult. But we need to think about tomorrow. We need to think about the next 3 months. We need to think about strengthening these systems, because if we focus on emergency aid, then we'll always be into emergency situations. So one of the things we've been doing is really to think through how can we help governments focus on the next 3 to 1 year. Where is the next season? How do we work with them to ensure that they have a good understanding of this? There are many resources that are becoming available, and how would we help them very quickly tap into those resources and make sure that the seasons they are working with are working. So going forward, like the teacher said, like the chair said, now I'm turning you into a teacher. Like the chair said, going forward, we'll really focus on how we double down on supporting countries we are working in to ensure that in those 16 countries we are working in, seed systems are working so that farmers can get better access to seed. We can improve connectivity and better management of soils and connectivity to fertilizer where it is needed by ensuring that soil carbon is being built, that we can work on markets so that farmers have access to markets, and that we can work on climate issues so that we continue to sharpen how we do business without harming the environment. So in a nutshell, really, those are the things we are going to do. And we look forward, we believe that when we do those right, and of course we continue doing the AGRF, and the AGRF is another, and a number of other platforms we do. You saw Value for Her and the awards that were being given. That's an award that is given to women leaders in agriculture. In SMEs, we have over 3,000 women, young women on an SME platform that we call Value for Her, the best awarded every year. So we get an opportunity to profile them, but also an opportunity to create a system where they can meet and have a chance to gather knowledge. We work on advancing technology through Pitch AgriHack. You know, many of you are part of that, where young people are pitching their latest advances in technology, and they get support, the winners get support to move forward. And then of course we have the AGRF as the biggest platform on the continent, and really indeed globally, that brings the best of knowledge, that provides an opportunity for people to continue learning from each other, and brings people in ways that they think about the challenges that we are facing and how we can address them. So you saw heads of state yesterday talking about some of the ideas they had around how to advance on what we are doing. So we will continue doing that, recognizing that whatever we do as AGRA, we are a dot in the ocean, but we need to make that ocean work, and we can be a catalyst to making that ocean work. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, we can't continue. We have to stop. We have to stop. A round of applause for our panel. And to end with a sense of decorum, can I just ask them please to stand centrally as you are for a photo opportunity of this event. And when that's done, we can perhaps allow them to exit before we do, so there isn't a great sort of traffic jam. So would you be so kind as to stand for a photo? Thank you very much. Right, and I don't know whether the photographers are going to leap up and take a photograph. I was told one would. Yeah, right. Yeah, okay. Sorry, there he is. This is the man with the camera. There's a real camera here. He's just mucking about. Right, right. No, thank you. So could I allow you to go first? Could I allow you to exit first? There's some killer steps there too. Thank you very much. Thank you. Merci beaucoup. Bien fait. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Sindi n'imfubyi, sindi igicibwa, oya sindi n'icike, naje mu rujwe n'urugamba, urugamba rw'urukundo